Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the WE Knives Hyperactive. This knife has a lot going on. It's got some really special elements. It's definitely an expensive knife, but I want to talk about my thoughts on the price tag and what's going into that, and ultimately whether or not I think you should pick it up for yourself. Thanks so much to WE for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This knife will be linked down in the description, so you guys can check it out if you want to. There's a whole bunch of different variations. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. It is not what I'd call a small knife, not even close. The Hyperactive comes in at about 8.65 inches overall. Blade length is coming in at about 3.75, cutting edge at about 3.5. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. So up against the 8010 and the 8020.5 here, you can see the 8010 is what most people would call a big knife. So it's right there in that same department. It's just not quite as thick. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. A little bigger, a little longer than the PM2 for sure. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Hogue Deca. A little bigger than both, absolutely. How is the action on this knife? The action is very, very good, and it flips exactly the way that you would want a premium flipper to deploy. The detent is good. The action, as you can see, is fall shut, but very controlled, which is perfect. I don't like knives that are so smooth that the blade is a guillotine. A lot of people automatically correlate that to like the most supreme levels of quality. I don't think so. I really hate that. That's a strong word. I don't hate it, but having controlled action is better for me, because then, especially with a knife like this, it's got such a big blade. This is how I like to disengage. Sorry, it slipped off the flipper tab. This is how I like to disengage my knives. One hand, move the lock bar, turn it and let it fall, right? Now you can assist that a little bit by just kind of going like this. But knives that are going to come down that fast, whether you do that or not, sometimes you don't have enough time or enough mental capacity, depending on the circumstance, to get your finger out of the way. So I don't really like guillotines. I like very controlled action like this. To me, that speaks a lot more to the amount of effort that went into tuning the thing properly. So the action in this case, I'm going to say, is perfect for the design. Great disengagement. Great flipper tab, easy stop there to get your finger out of the way, great pivot action, great flipper tab design, great detent, and a really satisfying flip and lockout. Very, very good. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see here it's really not a horrendously thick knife for how big it is, right? Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. Closed up, this is going to be, I guess, similar to the amount of space in your pocket that the PM2 occupies. It's not quite as tall, but it is definitely approaching it, and it's not quite as long. Actually, no, it's exactly as long in the closed position. Definitely bigger than the Spyderco Para 3. Where you're going to notice the difference the most is in terms of weight. So we have, for materials, before we weigh it, titanium. More titanium, a lot of really cool anno work going on here. And again, if you don't like the look of this, there's multiple variants, right? And each of them is a little bit different in terms of the finish, the anno, and the inlay, right? And the coating. So in this case, we have black with bronze accents, and then we have a lightning anno inlay on both sides, and we also have a lightning anno pivot collar on both sides. The blade steel, this is the first time I've ever seen this with WE, is Vanax. Wow. That's really cool. Vanax is one of my favorite steels of all time. What is so special about Vanax? Number one, it's important that everybody knows this. Vanax is more expensive. Like when they decide to purchase steel, right, before they turn it into a blade, it's more expensive than M390. In fact, it's more expensive than the majority of the super steels that we commonly see on premium knives. The composition results in a blade that is, let's just say it's very, very, very unlikely that it's going to corrode. The corrosion resistance of Vanex is incredible. Now, Vanex won't have the same levels of, the potential levels of edge retention as M390, but it still has extremely good edge retention and is much easier to touch up. I like the balance of Vanex and the benefit of Vanex better than M390, but I know that that's really, like, whether or not it's better, it's a super steel, and it's kind of subjective because it depends on what you're going to use it for. But factually, it is more expensive than M390. So this is a factor that we cannot ignore when it comes to the final price tag. I think it's cool. Hey, if this is an indicator that you guys are going to be using Vanex on your knives, huge thumbs up from me. I think that's wonderful. I know there's a bunch of people in my audience who love Vanex, so I think that's a really smart move. Very cool. So yeah, those are your materials there. Internally, we do have some milling for weight reduction, so that's also cool. It's still going to be a fairly heavy knife. I'm going to guess that this weighs at least 5.5, perhaps over 6 ounces. Not even. Really? Hold on a second. Let me make sure, since I screwed up the bottom of this, that this that this thing is still accurate in terms of weight. How about we do the rat too? I know exactly how much that thing weighs. Yeah, it's exactly on 2.75 ounces. Okay, just making sure my scale's still accurate. I know you can weigh a dollar bill or something like that. Somebody was telling me about that, but this 2.75 ounces is exactly the rat 2 weight. So this is less than 5.5 ounces. That's kind of surprising. I thought that it was going to weigh almost 6. So there you go. Okay, still though, that's going to be heavy for a lot of people. Balance, which matters in my opinion on a knife of this size, is actually right behind the pivot. That's cool. So for some reason though, it does feel a little heavier than that, but okay, there you go. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. Is Metal Complex sick? No, I have a cold. This is every year. I get like sick. Like, it's very rare that I actually get sick. I don't think I've actually been sick for a few years, but I do get head colds periodically. This time of year, definitely, the air gets really dry, and so that's what's happening right now. So sorry if I sound a little froggy. The pivot is a T8. And I think, yeah, all of the body screws are also T8. 1, 2, 3, and then we have a couple for the pocket clip. And the pocket clip is reversible, which is pretty cool. Nice work there. So yeah, very easy to take apart and maintain. T8 everywhere, which is just beautiful. Chef's kiss, wonderful. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness real quick, and we'll get into the meat and potatoes, because boy howdy, are there some meat and potatoes on this guy. Wow. I mean, this thing is, this is a lot of meat and potatoes, I'll tell you what. So, it wasn't zeroed out. It wasn't zeroed out. I got to get that zeroed out or people call me out on it. And, I mean, more importantly, it's just not accurate. 155 thousandths, that doesn't surprise me at all. A little on the thicker side. Okay. All right, meat and potatoes time. I'm absolutely certain that, I mean, it's 8 minutes into the video, right? Now, this is like an eternity has passed. I mean, if we consider the attention span of the average person in 2024. A massive portion of my audience has come from YouTube Shorts, and the people who endlessly scroll on YouTube Shorts, their attention span is roughly 15 seconds. So they're not sitting around this long. But most likely what's already in the comments section is that's a useless compound grind. One is just slightly higher than the other, and then there's this ridge in the middle of it that's just going to slow down or complicate cutting. Yeah, kind of. I mean, at this price point, there are so many different types of knives, and like what your money's going towards is all over the place. So you have certain people who are like, if I'm going to spend, you know, $300, $400, $500 on a knife, every single dollar needs to go into potential utility, even if I'm getting diminishing returns on that. That's one perspective. There's also a crap load of people who, once they get past a certain tier, don't care nearly as much about the utility of it. I mean, they still want it to function, but they're wanting more interesting elements. right? Now, this is a point that I've been arguing for. I mean, I don't have to argue it. It's factually true. There are plenty of people who it's like, yeah, I want it to function, but I like the extra, I like the shiny, I like the special, right? So even if an element like this on the blade, where you have this like little ridge right here, is not gaining, it's not granting a benefit, like a standard compound grind, a lot of times will grant the user a benefit. Well, it depends on who you ask, right? Hollow ground, the most common type we see is hollow grind up front or the primary edge. Secondary out towards the tip is flat, right? A lot of people say, oh, that makes sense because you can use a hollow grind for slicing. You use the tip. If you got to do a little bit more of the nitty gritty stuff, you want the, all right, whatever. Yeah, you know, this is not really doing that. This is granting the enthusiast the joy of aesthetic, right? In that aesthetic, in this case, is actually hindering the potential performance of the blade. Yes, but it's also okay, right? I get that that's just brain melting for some people, but it's okay. The nice thing is there are so many choices out there. WE definitely makes knives that are more catered towards, type A, let's say, the person I was describing initially, much more concerned with utility. And they also absolutely cater to type B and type C, right? User, collector, enthusiast. So that's what's going on with the blade. I like it. The most expensive knife I own, which is that Black Star stitch, it has a grind that's similar in terms of like how they've done this here. Now, it's not so pronounced that it's going to really tie your blade up. In fact, I can cut here. I've got a note card here. All right. So let's measure how much this slows me down. Basically nothing. Now, the thicker the material you cut, yes, the more you're going to feel that. Will that be a huge problem for most people? I don't think so. The nice thing is that the edge is continuous here. So sharpening it over time as you approach more towards this is going to look a little bit more funky here and there, but I think it'll be okay, right? So I know that that's going to be a point of discussion that people get hung up on, so you can think whatever you want. In my opinion, it's just not, it's not pronounced enough to cause much of an issue. I like how it looks, and I'm willing to, sacrifice a bit of utilitarian convenience in order to enjoy the look of it. Wow, this knife is wild, man. There's something going on everywhere, and I love the balance of craziness. The blade has enough character to match, right? It's just, I don't like knives that are like, wow, the handle's crazy, and then the blade is just like, nah, it's regular. Or, the opposite end of that, when you get a blade that's absolutely wild, and then the handle's just, and smooth tie. Like, what? Do something there. I mean, they got more or less crazy versions of this, and you can do that. But I like that there's just, I'm spitting all over it because I'm so excited. There's more or less crazy versions, but you can kind of pick the one you want. I love the bronze accents here. This is actually the least expensive version of this knife, which is wild. The bronze accents, right, where the bevels start. I like kind of the smoky black here. It looks pretty cool. I like the bronze here. The lightning anno is a really nice contrast with this. I love the bronze hardware. I love how they did the pivot, right? And then on this side, you have the adjustment head. They've got the WE logo right here, which is really cool. WE does such a good job of keeping their billboarding like to a bare minimum and just letting you enjoy the aesthetic of the blade. I love this grind. This is wild. It's cool, right? WE is getting better about catering to the people who are actually buying their products. I mean, there's going to be all sorts of people yelling their opinions here or there, but a lot of those people who are just screaming, that they shouldn't do this or that, a lot of those people are not buying products at this price point. So it makes no sense for WE to listen to those people. They're clearly listening to the people who buy their stuff because they're getting a lot better about bringing the elements that people actually want when they're spending this amount of money. Now, does that mean that they hit the nail on the head with the pricing? Not exactly, and I'll get to that, but not in my opinion anyway. But they are doing some cooler things. The Vanax, the crazy compound grind here, right, where you have, it's actually technically a little thinner out here, especially right in here. Wild. The flat here is a satin. I'm not convinced it's an actual DLC. I've heard reports that these black coatings with WE actually scratch fairly easily. Now, I don't know that for sure. Me carrying this around and using it for a couple of days, it didn't really mark it up. But then again, to be honest with you guys, I didn't cut anything crazy, right? I think a couple of pieces of cardboard, right? Some packaging, things like that. Everything wiped off totally fine. But I don't take this stuff out and pound it through a stump, right? I'm not interested. As a design reviewer, that doesn't do anything for me or the people watching my content, right? But there's plenty of other channels who do that stuff. But my point is that it didn't mark up crazy, but I don't really, I didn't really do enough to know for sure. And I don't have the proper equipment to be able to know absolutely. I would like for WE to clarify. Because if it is true DLC, it'll be like that Kunwu that I showed where I took a steel bit and tried to scratch the blade with it and it didn't scratch it, right? Now, either way, I'm okay with it. If it's not, it could be some type of PVD. You guys can do the flats polished. That means you can do the whole blade polished. We have a flat black here, and we have a more black satin, a polished flat. I'm telling you, if you do a knife where the whole blade is as shiny as this flat part, people are going to go nuts for it. Now, this is cool. It looks cool, but I'm telling you, experiment, try it. Do the whole blade like this, right? You don't have, obviously continue to offer options. Like your silver bead blast looks great. I love that. I think your finish work is incredible. Chill out with the flat stuff and just try one with a shiny black. I get people will lose their mind over it. If you can do that, do it. Now, the downside to that is that this coating does actually drop the Rockwell by 1, right? It's like a range of 2, so it drops it by 1 on average. So you got to know that. Their Vanax, they don't have to hit it as high as M390 for it to be optimal, right? But it will drop at 1. So before you buy one of these coated blades, you have to understand like how important is that to you, right? Outside of that, though, the blade looks awesome. It'll swedge up here. The flat comes up and separates it from a second swedge. The bevel, as per usual, is just perfect. The choke up on this is also great because we don't have a crazy prominent flipper tab. We also have extended jimping here. Honestly, using this knife and getting a comfortable grip on it, man, really great stuff. Classic knife lines, honestly, if you take away all of the nutty, crazy stuff, classic knife lines, really comfortable. Nothing sharp. Pocket clip is fine. I love what they did here with this pocket clip, by the way. This is a popsicle stick style clip. And if you didn't look any closer, you'd be like, yeah, that's what it is. But look at this. It did a bunch of extra machining on it so that the clip wouldn't be boring in contrast with the rest of the knife. I love that. I think that's excellent. That's really, really cool. The backspacer is also interesting. They could have easily just done a generic flush backspacer. It's not ultra complicated, but it's neat how they did the lanyard hole. It's also neat that they highlighted it with a bronze accents. They gave it a little ramp right there. Really cool. The inlay work is absolutely perfect. I like that they gave us just a little bit of a bevel on the edge to kind of highlight the inlay itself. Really cool. I also love that you did it on both sides. Nice move there. We kept that underneath, or they kept the frame lock underneath that overlay, which is really cool. Classy move. Just really nice. Little tiny things that just add cool factor and character for people who are looking for it, right? I like it a lot. I don't have a lot of, like, as an enthusiast and collector, because that's who I think this is for, 100%. It's not like WE was trying to make the most utilitarian dollar for dollar knife they could, right? So I think we need to understand that. It's not that they screwed up and didn't make what what everybody wanted. No, they might not have made what you wanted. What they made here is something for enthusiasts and collectors who still like to occasionally use this stuff, right? That's what they did. So lefty friendly. It's a right-handed frame lock, but lefty friendly. It's very easy to manipulate with my left hand. We have a stop pin, a huge, big old fat stop pin located in its traditional spot. Plenty of shouldering there. Really nice. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No lock stick, no pivot lash. It's all right? Hit it harder. No, because all I care about is that the lockup solidity is enough to withstand that. That's about all the more impact I ever expect to put on the spine of my knife, because I like to consider myself a responsible knife user. Now, if you don't like that, you can start a channel and you can put as much force on that spine that you want. But here, this is what we do. I'm going to try and keep that as consistent as possible from here on out, because people always want to see that. 3 taps, 3 light taps against what is vinyl upholstery and plastic, which is the material of the table underneath. If it can withstand that, it's fine in my book, right? But if it can't, there's clearly a problem, right? I think we can all agree. If a knife can't handle that, which is, it's basically nothing, then you've got a problem. Outside of that, though, we're good. A knife should be used for cutting, primarily. Here or there, you might have a little bit of weird force on, different parts of your knife from different angles, right? 3 taps should be fine. Outside of that, in my opinion, you're abusing the knife. But that's just my opinion. Anyways, steel lock bar insert doubling as over travel stop on top of this inlay here. That's pretty much it. Like I said, no double clutch, no lock stick, no movement in any direction, no pivot lash. Nice and smooth and consistent in here. Very nice detent. Boy, this is a cool knife. Man, how about that price tag? So let's consider what we're looking at here. We are not looking at plain titanium and M390, which means we are not looking at a $200 to $250 knife. I think we can automatically, for most people, if you've been paying attention to different tiers over the last year or two, I think it's real easy to say that we're not looking at that, right? Let's compare it with Kunwu. Kunwu uses Van X and they only charge $270, $280. All right, I love Kunwu knives, right? But if we're going to take one of their Van X models, let's look at the Padre. We got plain titanium textured, right? No inlays. We got DLC on there. Very cool, right? That's definitely a factor. And they got Van X. Now, those come in at $300, $310, $320 for the DLC ones. The non-DLC ones, I think they're $300. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I think we got more going on here, though. Don't you? We got a crazy compound grind. It's not utilitarian, though. It's pointless. It's purely aesthetic. It's still something extra, though. It still takes extra. We got some inlay work. We got some cool ano work. Right? A little more. We're a little more. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying there's more work involved. I think this would have been absolutely perfect at about $350. Now, the base price of these is $384. So, is it more expensive than what I would have wanted it to be at? Yes. Is it the most offensive thing in the world? No. If you love this thing, if you're like, man, I got the money, I can buy it, and you like how this looks, or you found a version of it that you like how it looks, yeah, you're going to be happy with this. But if you're not all about this look and this style and this vibe, right? This is a collector enthusiast item first and a user item second. It still make a decent user, right? But this is real dressy and intentionally catered towards people who are a lot like me. So it's going to have a lot more value with those people. But if we separate all that stuff and we just look at the materials, the work that's involved, country of origin, which is China, right? $350 is where I would put it. I think people who have been paying attention, might think maybe a little more, a little less than me. This is just my opinion. $384 is a bit high, but it's not crazy. If you're okay with that price tag, you will love this knife, definitely. But if you don't like how this looks and that price seems high to you, oh no. There's lots of other stuff out there. So, this is a cool knife. Not quite where I can say I recommend it to everybody, obviously, because it's a very, kind of a niche within a niche kind of thing. But cool, and I like, excuse me, the implication of the direction that WE is headed. Excuse me. Ouch. That's going to be pretty much it today. What a classy way to end this. If you enjoyed this video, this will be linked down below. You can check it out. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe. because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day. I was trying to keep myself from coughing, and I was so focused on it that I don't know if I did the outro correctly. Oh well. Thanks for watching. Bye.